topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask Good Questions podcast, broadcasting live every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time on W4CY Radio at W4CY.com. This week and every week, we will reach for a higher purpose in money and life, as well as a focus on health and wellness. Now, let's join your host, Bonita Bell-Andersen, as together we start with Asking Good Questions.
Hello, this is Bonita Bell-Andersen, and welcome to the Ask Good Questions podcast. We have a phenomenal show for you today, and I wish to welcome my guest today, Carmen Croonquist, to the proverbial podcast stage. Welcome, Carmen.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
Oh, well, I'm very excited. We're going to have a great show. We're going to talk about some very important issues around money and behavior and how people deal with all this financial stuff. So first, Carmen, I usually I've gotten to the point where I really like people to just talk a little bit, tell everybody a little bit about who you are. I know that you call yourself a master money mindset business mentor, and that you characterize yourself as a transformational healer. A lot of really great stuff that sounds interesting. Can you tell us all a little bit more about you?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it sounds like a mouthful for a job title, doesn't it? Master money mindset, business success mentor, and all that good stuff. Right. Basically, what I am is I combine energy work and neuroscience coaching with business coaching. And I help people really get in touch with their divine purpose and help them get at the root of what's preventing them from the success and the wealth that they want to create in their lives. And so I like to call myself kind of a pattern interrupter. I find what the patterns are getting in the way and interrupt those patterns and replace them with new programming.
Wow. And tell me where you live, or, what part of the country are you in?
Okay, well, part of the year I'm in Hudson, Wisconsin, which is where I'm from right now, just outside of Minneapolis, St. Paul. A lot of people don't realize Wisconsin's that close. In the winter, I'm in Dunedin, Florida, which is just west of Tampa.
Okay.
So I have the best of both worlds.
Right, yeah. You're kind of like me. I'm
a sunbird.
Yeah. We did that kind of in a different place. We're in the summer times in the Washington state, but then we're in St. George, Utah, where it's a lot warmer in the wintertime. So anyway, yeah, I know that whole lifestyle has become a whole lot more available with technology and be able to just be wherever you are. Like today, I'm coming at you from Hawaii. And we've already had some interesting workarounds to make sure that time zones were correct. So anyway, well, I am so happy to be doing this because over the weeks as I've been doing different episodes, we've talked about behavior and money. And at some point in this, I'm going to talk to you about me and what I went through when I went through a divorce about 25 years ago. But first, I would just love to find out a little bit more. Tell me about your journey. How do you get interested in helping entrepreneurs with money mindset and business success? What was that what you were always thinking you were going to be doing?
No, it was a career that I was not even available or not even aware of as I was growing up. I grew up on a farm in West Central Minnesota, and my dad said, Carmen, you can grow up and be anything you want. But how about a nurse, a secretary, or a teacher? And so I fell into the teaching just because I didn't know what else to do. But my last semester of college, I student taught hormonally deranged ninth graders, and I found out what I didn't want to do. And I was deathly afraid of public speaking. So I joke, my first job after college, I was the only female heavy equipment operator on a road construction crew. So all the learning skills kind of came into play, those transferable skills. But it led me to going back and getting a master's degree in counseling psychology because I really wanted to help people. And I did a lot of volunteer work and informational interviewing and really narrowed in on career counseling and coaching. So I spent a lot of my career as an administrator, as a career coach and counselor. And then I veered into higher education. So I created my own coaching program at a graduate school. But I went 9 years without a raise. So that's why this whole money thing was kind of beep, beep for me.
Well, were you in a public school or something?
No, I was at a university. I was at the University of Wisconsin River Falls. And then I went to Adler Graduate School to create a new coaching program. Okay. But because in order to make ends meet, I had this poverty mindset. So I was always working 3 and 4 jobs. So I had a contract with one of the big 4 accounting firms where I was coaching their top leaders. I was also teaching at a couple of community colleges on the side, and I had a private practice. And then at the end of the year 2015, it was kind of the dark night of the soul. Like everything happened. 3 people in my life were diagnosed with cancer. The guy I was dating at the time, out of the blue, just the day after Thanksgiving, decided to break up with me. And then my job was cut. And then the lucrative coaching contract that I had, coaching top leaders at Price Waterhouse, was cut. I didn't want that to go away. So suddenly, someone who had always had her next gig planned was suddenly at this crossroads of, what do I do now? And I have all these skills, and I really loved coaching top leaders and preparing, people that are going out into the field to be mental health professionals. But I wanted to do something different. And that's when I became really interested in neuroscience and the subconscious, because I was wondering, how do you produce lasting change in people without forcing them to relive traumas and just living in the past?
Yeah.
And that's how I discovered a methodology called theta healing. And I'll explain a little bit more.
What was that? Say that again. Beta healing?
Theta healing, which is like, it's like, you're in a theta brainwave.
Yeah.
You're in a theta brainwave when your subconscious is programmed from birth to age 7. And so in order to make change on that kind of survival level, because your subconscious fears change, it likes to keep you safe. It's that survival part of you. Mm-hmm. So the theta healing is getting back into that theta state and getting at the root belief. What are the root programs or causes that prevent you from creating wealth or success or create other things? Because I have people that come in who have their surface level is anxiety, and down deep, I find out that they were bullied in 2nd grade. Yep. There was something that went way back and that caused them anxiety. And you clear that out and you replace it with a new program. But I always want to ask the person, how did it serve you? Because even things that are kind of challenging in our lives, there's still a lesson and a gift. We still learned something.
You're there because of something.
Yeah, we learned something. There was a gift there. And it's time to acknowledge the gift and how it served you. And then what do you want to replace it with? So it's not just clearing out and releasing crappy beliefs, but it's what do you want to replace it with? Yeah. And then I really help people up-level their identity, because I'm a firm believer that self-concept dictates everything. Whether you can see yourself as a wealthy person, whether you can tap into the feeling of what it feels like to be a wealthy person who receives with ease. Because some people don't know what it feels like to be wealthy.
No, you're making me think of all the stories about people that have won the lottery.
Right.
And it's like 2 or 3 years and it's disastrous. And a lot of times people will say, I wish it would have never happened to me, because they do not have any kind of mindset. So what you're talking about is that mindset, and they're not comfortable with it. They don't see themselves as that, right?
Right. And what you're talking about is what I call a wealth blueprint. And a wealth blueprint is really kind of your patterns and your habits and your identity and your worthiness around money. It's a combination of your beliefs, your programs, your sense of your ability to deserve money. And we all have a set point, kind of like we have a happiness set point, believe it or not.
Right.
And you can raise it, through making some conscious choices. Same thing as with your wealth blueprint. We have a certain financial ceiling that I can't imagine making anything more than that. And I can't imagine making anything less than that. And I'm going to give you one example. I've been working with a doctor who left a job in the corporate world, where she was, she was an industrial psychologist, and now she was coaching. And she made a comment, why can't I make more than $1,000 a month for coaching? And through energy testing, I had her test to see if her wealth blueprint was set at, I can only make $1,000 a month with coaching. That's where it was. And I said, what do you want to make per month instead? And she said, I want to make $15,000 a month. And so we cleared out the old program. We asked how it served her. And then we created the new program. And then I downloaded with her the identity and the feeling of someone who makes $15,000 a month in coaching.
Right.
And within a month, she hit that mark.
Wow. Within a month.
The phone, I had to check and see where my wealth blueprint was at.
Right.
Then I'm like, oh my gosh. I wonder where I'm set, because, I have a high ticket offer that's at 100K. Like, am I aligned with this? So we're aligned with a certain wealth blueprint, and it's helping people get in touch with where it's at and understanding you can change it.
Yeah. I think most people think this is just the way it is, right? They don't realize they can change it. Isn't that fascinating? Isn't that fascinating that we can? I'm so grateful that technology is there, because that might be, who knows who might be listening to this, that they'll go, oh, that's what I need to do, is I need to go check that out.
Right. And it is a combination. There's ancestral stuff, because we carry beliefs on 4 levels.
Right.
We carry beliefs on, everything we've experienced in this lifetime, but we come in with stuff from parents and grandparents and generations that go back.
Yeah.
And we also might have taken a vow of poverty in a past life, or in another iteration of our life. I had a coach who came to me, top coach in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. Yeah. And he's like, I don't know why I can't crack over $6,000 a year. And I found out he'd been a priest before he became a coach 20 years ago. And he had taken an oath of poverty. And so we just cleared that energy out, marked it complete. I asked him what he gained, and he shared a lot of experiences and stories of what he learned from that time in his life when he had poverty. And now he makes well over 6 figures a year, because we cleared out that block and we marked it complete.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of leads into my next question. One of the things we talked about was spiritually guided entrepreneurs. I don't know if I've ever really thought about entrepreneurship in that way, being spiritually guided. Why would you say it's important to blend spirituality, or that higher self, our spirit part of ourselves, with financial empowerment? I think that's just a fascinating thing to blend.
Because we're all here as incredibly powerful creators of our life's experience, and what you focus on grows. And we're always creating, either by default or by design. And I really want people to understand that you're always creating. Complaining is creating. And we're all here for a divine purpose. We all agreed to show up here now. And we're all part of raising consciousness of this planet here and now. And why is that great combined with financial empowerment? Because you have the ability to impact and influence the things that matter to you in the world. Rather than just complaining about them or being passive, you have the ability to give to the causes, the people, the things that matter to you, and to live your best life. So I really believe it's part of our spiritual mission to be wealthy.
Yeah, well, it's one of the things I've always told clients is, you know, if you have wealth, then you can actually do more. You can give more. You can be more of a resource. You know, it's like, duh, it makes sense that if you can turn that around, you can give more to the world. You can be a better resource for everyone around you that you might be able to help. You know, I think that's great. Well, so kind of a related thing, and you were also talking a little bit about this, was there's a lot of heart-centered coaches, a lot of people that are really out there wanting to do good. They're healers. They're doing all this coaching stuff, but they feel conflicted about charging for their work. And you've already mentioned a couple of examples. How do you help them reconcile purpose and prosperity?
Right. I think there's this kind of mentality of trading dollars for hours. Yeah. And it's really helping people understand that the value that you bring is in the transformation that you provide. And I think people sometimes are afraid that, hey, if I raise my prices, I'm going to lose people. I'm going to lose clients. I'm not going to be able to help as many people. And I think you have the bigger impact when you are able to raise your prices, because you attract clients who are more motivated to get results. They have more skin in the game. They're the ones that are going to be your easiest clients to work with, because they're ready to hit the ground running. They're ready to get results. They've made an investment in themselves. And the transformation you provide is valuable. So it's really helping people understand, you know, what's your unique methodology. I packaged mine into something called the Worth Code, just to help people, you know, that's my methodology, but I help people kind of come up with, you know, how do you take your established methodology and really package into something that has that kind of impact and branding out there that resonates with people.
Yeah, it's so interesting. There's let's unpack the whole thing about subconscious beliefs again. There are what do you feel are some common subconscious beliefs around money that keep people stuck? I know in my life, you know, you're preaching to the choir, so to speak, here, because a lot of the challenges that you're talking about, you know, I've experienced in my life, and it's been kind of, you know, just putting one foot in front of the other. But I know that there are so many common mistakes that people make because they have a belief that they don't even know that is there.
I would agree. I think some of the common beliefs that people have, you know, there are fears about imposter syndrome, just feeling like I'm not worthy, or who am I to charge that for my services? I hear people who, this is my husband's, I'll pick on him right here. If I get into a higher tax bracket, I'm just going to pay more to the government. You know, so why create more wealth that I just have to give away in taxes?
Yep.
I always flip the switch on that and think about, you know, what do you value that you get from taxes? You know, and I value clean air, clean water, good infrastructure, roads and schools, and the things that taxes pay for. Right. And I don't have any control over it. So it's just, you know, if you're going to get wealthy, you're going to have to resonate with paying more for taxes.
Right.
I think sometimes people have fear that if I get really wealthy, somebody's going to be looking for a handout. You know, people will try to take advantage of me. Mm-hmm. And my response to that is always, it's having boundaries. You know, no is a full stop sentence. You don't have to help everyone. You get to decide who you want to support and have boundaries on, you know, how you want to spend your money and your time.
Right.
I think sometimes people have fear that they won't handle money well. So, gee, I'll make it and then I'm going to lose it. And I just always
That a
say
lot.
it's just the matter of having a fixed mindset versus a growth one. Because a fixed mindset would say, gosh, I never learned how to handle money, so why bother? A growth mindset says, there's so much out there on YouTube now, so many resources and places where I can learn how to, create wealth, invest wealth, and grow my wealth, that I shouldn't have to be afraid of that. I mentioned to you about some people having some of those ancestral patterns in the past, where those are interesting ones to pick up and clear out, because I will say that my parents have both very different mindsets in regard to prosperity. My dad had we're just the dumb farmers kind of mindset and had a very poverty consciousness. My mom has very much a very wealth prosperity consciousness. And my sister and I are both daddy girls. So guess whose mindset we tended to absorb?
Sure.
Where my brother, is more of a mama's boy, and guess what mindset he absorbed. So it was just being aware of that and clearing out those beliefs. I think sometimes people are afraid of, fitting in. Like, if I get wealthy, how am I going to fit in with the people in my life anymore, my family and friends? So I'm just going to stay small, so I won't feel out of place, so I'll still belong.
Then nobody will expect anything of me.
Right, exactly. Or there's fear of, what if I turn into some greedy, unethical, or selfish person, if I become wealthy? And I just always say, you have the ability to determine your integrity, and to be integrity with money, no matter where you are in terms of your status with wealth. So wealth is not going to necessarily turn you into somebody who's greedy or unethical. You make that decision. Right. I think sometimes people, a lot of times it's just not feeling worthy, and not knowing how to receive wealth at a higher level because they've never done it before. Yeah. So there's a lot of things that I come up against, when I'm working with people, and it's a lot of fun to get at those root beliefs and clear them out.
I can see that. I can see that would be challenging for you, but it would be kind of like a creative thing for you, right? To find out what you're dealing with, and then figuring out how to get around it.
Well, it's kind of like unwrapping an onion, or just figuring out a puzzle. What's the root cause? Yeah. And I'll often have my hunches, but what I do that's different from coaching, just to explain it a little bit, is coaching, you're getting into people's stories. People are addicted to their stories. They get a dopamine effect from their stories. So what I do is something called digging. And it's really answering a lot of who, what, where, why, when questions. So when's the first time you felt that way? Who said that to you? How did it make you feel? What happened next? And then I always want to know, what was the worst thing about that for you? And I'll keep going down that rabbit hole. And I won't let you tell your story. I'll just keep asking till we get to the root belief. And then I'll energy test. So what energy testing is using kinesiology. There are a lot of different ways. Sometimes it's called muscle testing or energy testing. But I'll energy test with the person to see if they have a certain root belief. And if we haven't gotten to the root belief, I'll keep digging. And then when we get to the root belief, then I'll ask, is this something that you want to change? Or do you want to change part of it and hold on to part of that belief? And, every person has free will. I can't impose my beliefs ethically on another person without their agreement. So then I want to find out, okay, how did it serve you? This old belief that we're going to clear out. And what do you want to have as a replacement? And then I make a command of their subconscious, and I make a request of the creator of seventh plane energy, because we're in a theta state when we're doing this together. And then I'm the witness. Yes, you rattled off my title as a healer. I'm really not the healer. I'm the witness. God is the healer. The creator is the healer. I just structure and witness the process. Right. And I'm so lucky because I get to witness miracles.
Wow. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the whole thing with imposter syndrome. I know that for me, I had thought about doing a podcast for a long time. And actually, I had actually had an experience with a very arrogant Los Angeles-based male advisor who said, they'll never listen to you. You're an older white female, and they're not going to listen to you. And that just shook me. I was so surprised that somebody would actually say something like that to me. But then as I go along and I finally went, why not me? I've got a whole lifetime of experiences. I've got all this stuff that I've learned. And I'm finding that, having started the podcast, I'm finding that it's a creative outlet for me. But I know I went through that whole thing with imposter syndrome, saying, how could, I think it shows up in a lot of successful people, doesn't it? Where, isn't that really what you do, is you're dissolving that whole thing at its root?
Yeah. And I think what's at the root of imposter syndrome is perfectionism and not feeling vulnerable enough. I'll use an old Adler Graduate School line from when I was a professor there. It's all about having the courage to be imperfect.
Yeah.
And that's what it really is at the root of it, is because we want to feel perfect the first time we do something. Like the first time you did that podcast, you wanted to feel like, I know what I'm doing. I'm perfect. Everything's going to flow
right.
for,
Well, I think there's an element of I think you want to look good too.
Right. You want to look good and feel doing it.
Yeah.
Right. And so I just say anything that's worth doing is worth doing imperfectly until you get it right.
Yeah.
Until you get just kind of like driving where it becomes second nature anymore. And you're not even necessarily having to think about all the elements of operating a car, because it is so, it's just ingrained in your subconscious. And so it's just, it's having the courage to do something poorly or imperfectly until you get it down right. And knowing that with every person, sometimes you're a quick study and you get it right away. But sometimes you just have to accept that perfectionism is the enemy of progress.
Mm-hmm. There's a saying that I heard a long time ago. It was ready, fire, aim. And I think it's that concept of just getting started and just going ahead and just doing it and then figuring. And so I'm finding that as I go along, I'm like figuring out other things I want to do, but I had to start, or else I would have never gotten to that point. So there's kind of a companion thing, and that's shifting from scarcity to abundance, or, and scarcity could also be, wouldn't you say, like survival mode?
Right.
I know a long time ago, it was like, oh, just say positive affirmations. And then I've heard a lot of people say positive affirmations don't work. How do you, positive affirmations are probably a good thing in some way, but what would you say is the best way to start making a shift from that whole scarcity mindset to something that's going to serve you a whole lot better?
I'm going to use a quote from Genevieve Davis, which is complaining is creating, and get back to the comment I made earlier about we're always creating by either default or deliberately. And so it's making your mind up that I'm going to start creating as much as I can by deliberation. And so I'm going to keep my focus on prosperity and what I want instead of what I don't want. Because a lot of people spend a lot of energy and focus complaining and kvetching about what they don't want.
Yeah.
And so it's really getting in touch with, okay, money loves a purpose. Money loves being specific. So getting specific about what do you want to make? And then realizing, hey, I can go beyond that. I don't need just enough to get by. I can have overflow in my life as well. But really affirming that and realizing that money is a vibrational energy. It's just money is energy, just like everything else. and aligning to the energy of wealth and money and affirming it. It is getting up beyond those beliefs. So clearing out, beliefs that are no longer serving you, that are disempowering. It is also up-leveling your worthiness and your ability to receive, and realizing that the universe has your back, that if you come in it with such certainty and belief and allowance, it has to come.
Yeah.
It's a law of attraction.
I think this is a good place where I'm going to talk a little bit about my story. 25 years ago, when I went through this terrible divorce, and I had characterized myself as, I've got 3 daughters, and all of us were just in a huge funk. And I had characterized myself as being curled up in a corner, sucking my thumb, just in shock, and just not knowing what to do. I came to a point, Carmen, where I said, damn it, I'm going to move on. I'm not going to let this destroy me. I'm going to figure out a way to make this move on. But you know what it was? It was thinking about my 3 daughters and wanting to be there for them, because I also knew that they were hurting. And so again, for me, starting that transformation and starting to reinvent myself had to do with wanting to find a purpose.
Right.
To go forward.
Yeah. It is. And I think purpose is really everything. It's, if you go back to Viktor Frankl from Man's Search for Meaning, he's one of the most powerful ones about purpose that I can ever think of. I go back and read that book once a year. For those of you that aren't familiar with him, he was a psychologist and a Holocaust survivor, and his entire family was wiped out. And he wrote about his experience. And he found that the people that lived and survived the Holocaust were the ones that had a reason to get up the next morning. Yeah. They had a reason for being. And I think what you're sharing in your experience, Bonita, is just putting one foot in front of the other and thinking about what's the next best thing to do. What's the next thing to do right now to support my family, right, and to move forward. And money loves a purpose. Money is there to fund your dreams and to fund your purpose. It's just a tool. Yeah. And so having a reason to be wealthy enables you to attract more of it, because you have that purpose.
Well, do you have a story? Can you think of something where, do you have a favorite client success story where somebody's unlocked their wealth and worthiness? Can you think of something?
Yes. Well, I shared with you about the doctor, and she's the one that comes to mind more recently. Right. There was a lot of stuff that we needed to clear out for her, besides up-leveling just her money blueprint so that she could start making $15,000 a month from coaching. There were a lot of things that related to unworthiness from her parents. She had survived a lot of emotional and verbal abuse growing up. And there was a lot of that stuff that had to be cleared out to help her feel worthy to receive, to help her not feel so self-critical, because she was criticizing herself throughout that journey. Wow. And her transformation.
She probably didn't even know it. Did she? I would bet that there was probably she wasn't even aware that she was doing that to herself.
Right. Yeah. No, but it was through getting down into that subconscious level and doing the digging that we were able to find these programs that were very disempowering. And they were about worthiness, because she grew up being criticized, and she had a heart wall. She had developed, I always call it kind of a protective personality, which we developed when somebody has abused us verbally or emotionally, or physically even. And she had to be able to get out of that and see her potential and her ability to create wealth. And she was now using her purpose to help other people like her to be seen and heard and to create wealth. Wow. So it was kind of like heal thyself, so that you can help others walk that path as well.
Well, and the other comment I guess I'd make would be, it's not anything on the outside. Whenever, I mean, it seems like all the examples and everything that you've been talking about, it's changes that you're making inside. There's nobody on the outside that's doing anything. It's you rewriting the script in your own life.
Exactly. Yeah. It's what are the stories that you're telling about your life? Even challenging times, like I can look back over, how the trajectory of my life changed after 2015. When I was sharing with you, my job went away, the contract that I had for coaching went away, and I was left with my private practice. And, I did my little pity party for a while. And I did something that I always encourage my clients to do. Like, now is a good time to do some feng shui and clear out physical clutter. Because a lot of times we just have too much stuff. Clear out the physical clutter, but clear out the emotional clutter, because then you have more clarity to think about, okay, what do I want to bring into my life next? And that's when the whole theta healing and neuroscience coaching came in. And it just gave me a new level of excitement, because I'd always had a private practice. I've been in private practice for 22 years now, but it was just one of many things I was doing. I wasn't solely into my private practice. Then I became very solely into being an entrepreneur and helping entrepreneurs. So the universe had my back. It was just time for something new.
Yeah.
It's time for me.
I think you were like focusing the stream down, right?
I was. Yeah. And it's enabled me, as you talk about just being able to be anywhere, it's enabled me to be in Florida in the winter.
Yeah.
It's enabled me to, speak on a stage with somebody who's in Hawaii right now.
Yeah. And the thing, it's like, don't you feel like, isn't this interesting? It's like so getting back to starting this podcast.
Yeah.
I'm asked, well, what do you want to call it? And I said, I knew exactly what I wanted to call it, because it was Ask Good Questions, because all the crap I've went through in my life, all the problems I've had have been largely because I didn't ask good questions. And I didn't know what the right questions were to ask. And so like this whole thing with being able to be in a warm climate in the wintertime, instead of saying, oh, I can't do that, I started saying, how could we? How could we be able to do that? Because it was like I had actually slipped on the ice outside my house one morning, and I'm literally laying on the sidewalk, looking up at the sky going, I can't do this anymore. And, that's, I think it's asking this whole, and the name of the podcast has come in so many times, because everything that we're doing and all the success that we have in life, a lot of ways, is because we've started asking better questions.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. And it's kind of a who, not how, because the universe can help align the how. It's just getting clear on what do you want, and being open that it might come to you in a little different way than you thought. Yeah. My ability to come to Florida in the winter came through COVID, changed everything. Yeah. And during 2020, my husband, who is an engineer, moved a big machine down to Florida and had enough work that it was going to probably provide for him for the next 4 years to be going back and forth to Florida. And I just tagged along, because then all of a sudden I could do everything with my laptop and my webcam.
Yeah,
and
sure.
Technology.
Yeah.
So
I'm in my apartment with my laptop, my cell phone, my little ring light, and my little mic, which all went in the suitcase. So, man, do you realize it's almost been about 40 minutes? How do you help people grow their wealth and not experience burnout? Because I can see where people could go, but then they get burnout. Because today's world can be so high pressure, so much hustle and bustle. I know, being in Hawaii here, we're serving a mission in Hawaii right now, and I can do the podcast while I'm doing that, right? And there's a much more of a laid back attitude here, but most of the world has that problem where they, what do you say to people about burnout?
Well, you don't do yourself any favors with burnout because it depletes you physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And it's kind of like the oxygen mask when they say that on an airplane about putting the oxygen mask on yourself first, because you're only able to give to others if you have self-care. And so I don't think you have to trade in your well-being in order to be successful. And that's a myth that a lot of people have in regards to scaling their businesses. And the myth is just that, I have to do more. The shift is, how can I leverage? How can I serve more people and leverage my time and still make time for well-being and my family and other things that matter to me and nature, and just having a full life is what you really want.
Right. Well, and what's most important to you, right? What are the most important things in your life?
Right. Yeah, being aligned with your priorities and your purpose. It's really, it's how you want
to purpose
to spread, it's how you want to spend your time and your energy.
Yeah.
Because we all have 24 hours. That's a great equalizer. No matter what your wealth is, you've got 24 hours a day. And that's a non-renewable resource.
Right.
So if people think more about their time and their energy and come up with systems that are scalable and not feeling like they have to be doing every little thing and going crazy, but just getting more clarity and focus and confidence, and the confidence to package their brilliance into a high ticket program.
Right.
Because I think about everybody has some ability to package their expertise into something that is high ticket. And knowing how to find their right fit client, where does your right fit client hang out? What do they do? And really helping them come up with systems in place to help them scale their businesses.
Sounds, it's like, I'm hoping there's some people going, okay. So on the podcast website, I have a place where I put information. And so we will be putting some information about how to find you there as well. And so, our time is just about gone. Can you believe it?
I know, it went fast.
I know. So what are some final thoughts that you have to share with our listeners? What do you think?
Rich people say, I create my life. Poor people say, life just happens to me. And so it's just being aware that we're not victims, even if we've had, bad experiences, like you talked about your divorce. And I went through divorce at age 40. So I know I was single for a solid decade. I relate to what you shared. It's just that remembering that you're a powerful creator and that you have the ability to create by design and enjoy this beautiful life. There's so much that you can do. You're here for a powerful reason, and you're here to create wealth so you can have the impact that you desire to have in your life. And so I just say, get clear about your intentions so you can live your truth and own your worth at the highest level.
Boy, I hope that resonates with everyone. I hope everyone is hearing you and feeling that and saying, what good questions do I need to ask now about where I want to go? And maybe this will spur people to just rethink, what's my purpose? What am I here for? What can I do to go out and help others and be more and do more, and share more? Actually, I'm thinking of another person who's in the financial coaching who says it's all tied around your value, how much value you give.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, purpose, value, and being able, and, I think that one of the blessings for me is being able to find people for people to go to and to resonate with. And so I want to thank you so much for being here. I think you have an amazing business, an amazing I don't know, skills and help that can really transform people's lives if they'll go and seek that out.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to share with your audience, and so great to talk to you again.
Yeah. Well, we will stay in touch. And again, people will be able to get the information on where to find Carmen on the podcast website. And so thanks again, Carmen. Take care.
Thank you.
All right.
Today's episode is over, but we did ask good questions again, didn't we? Don't miss out as we broadcast live every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time on W4CY Radio at W4CY.com. Join Bonita Bell-Andersen next week for more conversations with experts on finances, retirement, behavioral finance issues, health and wellness, and more. Until then, remember to ask good questions.